Hey guys, today we're out here with our long-term RAV4 and I finally have the hitch that I have been promising for some time. Now, I have been waiting for Toyota to release an official factory trailer hitch kit for the 2019 RAV4 and 2020 RAV4. So far, that has not happened. Now, at the release time of this video, I finally found part numbers for a hitch kit. However, I haven't actually been able to find any available for sale. So I think that Toyota will release them over time, but at the moment, if you want to get a hitch, then you're going to be looking at an option like this, which is an aftermarket hitch. This one is from TorkLift, and a big thanks to them because they actually gave us this particular hitch for testing on the RAV4. Now don't worry, they didn't reach out to me. I actually reached out to them because I found this hitch online and it looked like one of the better designs to me. You can see that it is a pretty slim overall design. We have this weight carrying bar that goes over to this bracket, and the overall profile of this hitch is pretty short. It also doesn't require too much bumper modification. Now we do have to cut a slot in the bumper for this hitch receiver to go through, but it's a pretty minor job overall. And the whole thing bolts up to the factory mounting holes on the RAV4 because this was designed to tow between 1,500 pounds and 3,500 pounds depending on the model that you get. This hybrid model is rated theoretically for 1,750 pounds. Now, a thing to keep in mind there when it comes to overall payload and towing ability is that this hitch bracket does weigh about 44 pounds in its own right, and of course that's going to come right out of the payload ability of the RAV4. If you want to get your hands on one of these hitches for your 2019 or 2020 RAV4, you can go over to TorkLift's website and buy an eco hitch. They're about $300 or so. That does not include the wiring harnesses, which I did not get from them. I actually ordered them from somewhere else. We'll go into that a little bit later. Or you can actually email itsaconspiracy@alexsonautos.com because TorkLift gave us not just one of these, but two of them. So we're going to be raffling off one of those a little bit later in the 2020 calendar year. So be sure and get your emails in. We will send you all the details of what you need to do. Basically, you just need to give us your name, mailing address, and then we're going to have a raffle once we do a live show, probably towards the end of March. With that out of the way, let's dive right into the installation because it does appear to be pretty easy overall. Now let's go in for a quick look and see what we need to do. So if we turn the camera around, you'll see that right here, this is where the hitch is going to come out in this area of the bumper. So we do have to make some cuts right there. On either side of the rear end of the vehicle, if we take a look up in there, you'll see that we do have what looks like a frame member. This is actually just part of the unibody, but we have a screw hole right there in black, and then we have one up front right over there. That's where this is going to bolt into. Again, these are the factory mounting points. We're going to have to disconnect the exhaust hangers right here. These are rubber exhaust hangers. We just pull them out of the slot, disconnect those. The exhaust will drop down a little bit, enabling the installation of that hitch frame member. Thankfully, the ground clearance in this generation of the RAV4, including the hybrid model, is pretty generous, so we don't really have to lift the vehicle off the ground. We just have to lift the weight off the suspension a little bit in order to have enough access right down here to do this installation. The first thing we need to do is mark the cutout location right down here in the rear bumper. Now, I know I really probably ought to have jack stands under the vehicle, but remember, I've only lifted this vehicle up maybe about 1.5 inches. Most of the weight is still right there on the tire, so I'm not overly concerned about that. It's definitely not going to fall off or anything. I probably could do this without even lifting the RAV4 up at all, but it does make it a little bit easier to have that extra inch or so. Now that we have that center position marked, to make sure I cut a line that is as straight as possible, I'm going to go ahead and use some blue painter's tape to mark off the location that we'll be cutting. And then I will use a brand new knife blade in my razor knife for actually cutting this opening. So again, that way the mark is just as absolutely clean and straight as possible. Remember to always measure, and then cut once, because it's going to be a little bit difficult to try and glue your bumper back together. Although I suppose you could always buy a brand new bumper if you needed to. So everything here looks okay. I have just one slight adjustment. My tape is slightly off right there. So now that that is in place, now we pull out the razor knife and we begin cutting. Now I suppose there could be an easier way to do this. You could use a Dremel if you wanted a slightly different style edge here. You can cut from the inside, you can cut from the outside. Obviously, just be careful cutting. Make sure you know where your hands are, where your head is, other body parts, people around you, that sort of thing. So we have one side that is now completely cut. Go ahead and start on the other side. If you're really concerned about making a very clean cut, you can always change blades midway through. This is pretty tough bumper material, but once you get in there, you can do it. All right, we now have a cut there. we'll make one final cut across the rear bumper to complete this. This is the more critical one, since this is the one you're probably going to be seeing. So just be slow and deliberate. And there we go. About the exact location of everything. And we'll just go ahead and trim off the corner, make sure it is perfect. And there we go, step one is now complete. Overall, the most difficult thing really is going to be lowering this exhaust a little bit so that we can have easier access to some of the mounting locations. You can use WD-40 or 3-in-1 oil right like this on the rubber bushing in order to pull the post out of the rubber bushing. You can see now that I have freed the exhaust from the bushing there, and very conveniently it is resting on this floor jack. Now again, the vehicle is not very high off the ground here. It's because there's a lot of ground clearance, so you don't really need to if you don't mind laying on the ground. Obviously, if you had a 4-post lift, that would make this job easier, but I don't really think that we need the jack stands in this particular case because this floor jack really isn't holding a lot of weight at all. Here, the inside of the exhaust tips. Okay, so squeeze in there. Up there. All right, and now it's important to make sure that the hitch is centered properly before you really do anything, because the bolts are oval on the bracket itself. They're not round, so it's not going to fit in just exactly one spot. There is a little bit of wiggle room, so you can actually slide it forward and backward a bit. Once you have that position chosen, it's then time to torque down the bolts to the manufacturer specified torquing, so you're going to definitely want a torque wrench. You want to make sure that everything is done per specification so that way it doesn't get loose or fall off, or worse yet, you over tighten it and then break a bolt. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, one 2-inch receiver installed right there on our 2019 RAV4 Hybrid. Now this model again is rated for 1,750 pounds of towing ability. The key thing to know about that at the moment is that unfortunately all of my trailers are too heavy, even if they're completely empty, to be towed behind this RAV4 at the moment. So we are reaching out to a number of different trailer companies out there. Hopefully one of them will decide to send us a teeny tiny trailer, hopefully a camping trailer. If not, we'll just load up a utility trailer. My next door neighbor has one that I could probably use. It's not going to be very exciting, but it would give us the ability to test this vehicle out at 1,750 pounds. So be sure and stay tuned for that video. And again, if you want to get your hands on one of these hitches, you can join the raffle. Just email itsaconspiracy@alexonautos.com and we'll send you any details that you need to know about getting on the list to try and win that raffle. And of course, stay tuned because I have also ordered a 7-pin harness kit for the RAV4. Now, the one that TorkLift Central has available for the RAV4 is a 4-pin variety. I personally prefer towing with a 7-pin harness because trailers that I have power, they have an emergency brake, etc. So that's exactly what I have ordered for this RAV4. The kit's a little bit more complicated, but we're going to do a separate video on that, and I will see you all later.